Today, I'm going to show you how to make pizzelles. These little flat waffle cookies that are very famous in European cooking, mostly for the holidays. They come in different flavors. But in order to do this, we have to have space. And as you can see, my kitchen is very small. So I'm going to show you how we can create some space in order to accommodate this process. So stand by and we'll get you going. In order to create space in my kitchen, I put a cutting board over my sink. It covers the hole. Whatever you use, a board from Home Depot, a shelf you happen to have laying around, just make sure it's big enough to cover the hole. It's just a little bit bigger so it doesn't slip and slide around. And by doing this, I have, for myself, created more than double, because my kitchen is so small, the space that I had before. And I extend my workspace over to the stove. I cover all this up with paper towels. You'll see in the following videos as we move along. I'm going to start with a list of ingredients that we need. First, you'll need 3 eggs, 3/4 cups of sugar, and I use very inexpensive ingredients. Buy the least expensive products you can find, except for the anise oil. We'll get to that in a minute. 1½ sticks or 3/4 cups of butter. I like to use the high-fat salted butter. You can adjust this if you want to oleo or unsalted butter, margarine, or any of the dairy-free spreads. I prefer the high-fat butter because it adds grease to the pizzelle iron and they come off much easier and it has a nicer flavor, but you can adjust this to your diets as needed. 1 teaspoon of vanilla, any brand you like. My daughter made this batch in 21. When it gets about half full, I add vodka and then leave it sit for about a month or 2 so it continues to ferment with the vanilla beans inside. 1/4 teaspoon anise oil. You can use any flavor you like. I prefer the Loran oils, super strength, because of the intensity. The 4-ounce bottle makes hundreds and hundreds of dozens, so steer away from that one unless you're planning to go to a little business. I ended up buying some 1 fluid ounce bottles because Amazon didn't have the 4-ounce bottles. It's really the better deal for me. The small bottle is just 1 fluid dram or 0.125 fluid ounces, and that little bottle will make about 4 batches. So for now, I would recommend sticking with the small bottle unless you really know the flavor that your people will like. If you order it on Amazon and it arrives in the winter, it'll be crystallized. Just leave it sit on the counter and it'll thaw out. 3/4 cups of flour. I use unbleached flour because there's more nutrition. And again, I use the cheapest flour on the shelf, so I would recommend you do the same. There's really no secret to making these. To use my stand mixer, you can use a hand mixer if you like, but you're going to beat the 3 eggs until it comes up to a froth, not foamy. It'll come up pretty quick. See how it's doing. A little bit more. Yeah, that's pretty good. Then we're going to add 3/4 cups of sugar. We're going to mix it a little more. We're going to let the sugar dissolve a little bit and get absorbed into the egg. In the meantime, we're going to melt some butter. As you can see, I melted the butter. You can do it on the stove top. You can do it in the microwave for about a minute, maybe a minute and a half. If it explodes, you know you went too long. I add the 1 teaspoon of vanilla and the 1/4 teaspoon of anise oil into the melted butter. You can kind of see a little bit in there where it's dark. And I give it a little stir to mix it up. And what this does is the butter helps to move the flavors around in the batter more evenly. So now that we're through with this step, You take this melted butter, the anise oil, and the vanilla, you add it to the egg and sugar batter. And you're going to mix that again for about a minute or less, just enough to mix it up. Once you've mixed up the butter, anise oil, and vanilla in with the eggs and sugar, you're going to add in the flour. I just dump it all in. There's no secret to making these things turn out. I guarantee you people will eat them. You can sift the flour if you like. If you're more of the home economics exact measurement kind of a person, you might want to weigh your ingredients before adding them. But I just shake open until it's on the plate. Just give it a minute. Scrape off the sides. Make sure we get all the ingredients in there pretty good. And that looks pretty good. See, it looks a little bit like cake batter, which is a nice consistency. Sometimes it comes out really stiff and hard, which just means your pizzelles are going to be a little thicker. And this batter might turn out to be a little bit thicker, but I mean the pizzelles. But that's okay. It's like I said, someone will eat them. Right now at this point, we're going to cover it with saran wrap. We're going to leave it in the refrigerator for at least 1 hour. I like to leave it overnight because that's just the way my schedule works. I make the batter one day and I cook them the next. So we'll see you back in a little bit. You can watch me cook them up, and I'll show you how I've adjusted my workspace to accommodate this project. It's been over an hour. I took the batter out of the refrigerator. These are the tools that I'm going to use to make the pizzelles. I need a spatula, a spoon. The spatula is going to help me scrape the pizzelles, the batter off of the spoon. This is an iced teaspoon. You can use a tablespoon, you can use a teaspoon, whatever your heart desires. This is one of those learn as you go type of projects. The tongs help lift the pizzelle cookies off of the waffle iron, and the knife cuts the pizzelles if they happen to blend and marry together. I like to line my counter spaces with paper towel to absorb the butter that's coming out of the pizzelles. It just makes cleanup a little bit easier. One thing I would caution you about is when working on a Formica counter, which mine is, be careful of overusing your pizzelle iron or other appliances that create heat. The problem I ran into at my other house was I used my pizzelle iron so much, it was more than 4 batches. I overheated it, it caught on fire, and another problem I had was the Formica top popped off of the counter itself, so it had to get re-glued. So just a caution, these are not industrial strength products, so just use it maybe 1 or 2 batches at a time and let it cool down and continue on with your manufacturing, if you will. This is the waffle iron that I like to use. It's a Toastmaster. I bought it on eBay for about $40. There's 2 settings, one for waffle and one for pizzelle. It's on pizzelle. The knob broke off, and I know it's on pizzelle because I've never made waffles with this. When the red light goes on, I'll know it's hot enough. Sometimes if you don't have a waffle iron with a temperature gauge on it, I take a little dish of water and I'll sprinkle some water on it. It's got a slow spit to it, so I know it's not ready. When the light comes on, I'll show you the difference. Okay, the light is on. Let's try the spit test once again. That's what I'm talking. Much faster, much louder. Let's put some batter on there. Now I'm using just about a heaping teaspoon of, it's a nice teaspoon of batter. I'm just going to drop it on there. But you have to remember now, I have to remember, my countertop is not level. So every now and then I have to look to see which way they're rolling. So it's just a little over a heaping nice teaspoon. Probably more like a tablespoon. See, now I can see they're rolling towards me because that's how unlevel my countertop is. And I'll just close the lid and let them melt into place and see where they end up. It'll take about a minute or a minute and a half for these to cook. I'm going to give this a little trim on the side with all of the overflow, just to help keep the waffle iron clean. Let's take a peek to see how they're doing. Oh, they're done. They're in good shape. Some people like these much lighter, and some people like them darker. I'm just going to flip them over onto the paper towel that I have prepared. And you see how I'm lifting it up with the knife and then grabbing it with the tongs? And the same with this one. I'll lift both of these up at once, and I'll come from underneath to support it so they don't tear. As they cool, they'll get a little harder. And then I'll do the same thing for the next batch. A little heaping spoon. And I keep doing this until the batter is all gone. Sometimes the thermostat will get too hot on the Pizzelle iron, waffle iron, and it will kind of shut down. It'll take a little longer for these to cook. And that's when I know I'm really asking too much of my Pizzelle iron, and I have to get my backup iron so I don't start a fire, which has happened in the past, and I have learned from that big mistake. So I'm just a little more careful with it now. Okay, so now I'm in the trimming process here. I just take the knife and go around, just kind of poke it and get the little extra pieces to pop off. Sometimes I break them. That's okay. I just stick them in the gift bag anyway, if it's not too bad, if it's a clean break. Other times I'll just put the schnitzels aside, and they will go into the schnitzel bag. And this is just a bag of all the crumbs. There, can you see? Some that cook too long, all these little pieces. I save them up. Then I have little customers who beg for them. Do you have any Pizzelle crumbs, Nanny? My grandchildren, my nieces and nephews, they all compete for these. So yeah, so this is just the trimming phase. Once I get them all trimmed up nice, I get them ready for the bagging phase for gifts. That's a whole nother process. Stay tuned. I just wanted to show you the difference between the thin cake batter and the thicker batter, and believe me, I've made it where it's much thicker, but this is still good. I would never throw any batter away. Just put smaller portions on the Pizzelle iron. You'll figure out how to deal with it. But this is also a triple batch, so I probably beat the eggs too long. Just think of meringue. When you're making meringue, you beat the egg whites till they're foamy and then they become stiff. Yeah, that's what I think I did. But I'm not worried about it. This is still doable, and they'll taste delicious. And like I said, someone is going to eat them, especially the babies. They love them. I just wanted to show you what really thick batter looks like. So thick, the spoon will stand in it. So it'll be a little tougher to work with getting it on the Pizzelle iron. But I would not throw this away, definitely. I'll just take a little longer, use smaller scoops on the Pizzelle iron, try to soften the batter up by mixing it. I'll just kind of break it down like this and then spoon it onto the Pizzelle iron. But yep, this is really thick stuff. The next phase we're going to work our way into is getting ready for the packaging. You can do a lot of this long before you're making Pizzelles. But I go to the gift wrap section and I find labels that are appropriate for the season that I like. And I have some for Easter, so we can see down here. I have some for Christmas, and I get the grandchildren involved, so they get to cut them out and punch the holes. And I have some for Halloween, which is now the season I'm working on. I line them up on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I go to Kinko's and I print 3 or 4 sheets off. It just depends on how many gifts I'm making. And then I hand it to the grandchildren and let them practice their cutting skills and their punching skills, and they get to earn their keep. They're not getting Pizzelles for free. I use leftover ribbons from Christmas presents, such as this, anywhere between 6 and 10 inches long. It just depends on how many gifts you're giving. I take them off the spool when I find ribbon on sale around the holidays. So, and I try to match it for the holidays. that I'm giving them for. So this one is like for Easter, so I would use that one probably with the Easter one, and red for Santa Claus, and maybe some orange or black for the Halloween. Just depends on what I have. I'm gonna need scissors and a hole puncher as well. So if you're wondering how I store them if I'm not wrapping them up for gifts, I pretty much leave them in a Ziploc bag. I store them in a cool, dry area, and that's how they stay for months at a time. Nobody's really complained. If they get soft due to humidity, some people have told me they stick them in the oven at 200 degrees and they crisp right up again. I wouldn't leave them in there very long, but I have some critics in the family who think they are the Pizzelle connoisseurs. Oh, they're too soft, Nani. Well, they're too crunchy. They're too dark. They're too light. I just get a little chuckle out of them and take that into advisement and walk away. These are corsage bags. You can buy them online. You can buy them on Amazon. I buy mine at Dealer's Discount in Warren, Michigan. The size I use for my Pizzelle iron, because some of those Pizzelle irons are much bigger, some are a little smaller, 5.5 inches by 3.25 inches by 12 inches. And the gusset, the width, the size, I like my Pizzelles to sit in the bag like this. So there's not too much overhang on top so I don't look cheap. But if I could find a 9-inch long bag, I would prefer to use that, but I've not had much luck at all. So I stick with the 12-inch bags and it just looks a little frillier. So that's the corsage bag phase. This is the recipe for Pizzelles. Originally I named it Virginia's Pizzelles because she gave me the recipe and I modified it. Then one of my friends got upset and said, no, these are now your Pizzelles because this is your recipe. It's not her original recipe, which is true. So my nom de plume is Virginia's Pizzelles, but also known as Margaret's. These are some of the things I use for substitutions for people who have allergies, gluten-free or dairy-free. I like Bob's brand of gluten-free flour. The baking flour is the best. And I use Earth Balance for people with dairy-free issues. Every now and then, a little bit of batter gets left behind on the Pizzelle iron. And it burns off into the next Pizzelle batch that you put on the iron. And that's what you see happening here with all of these black spots. And it's okay. Someone will eat them. It's not a big deal. And I think the other important caveat to mention is I do not want, there's another piece there. I do not wash my Pizzelle iron because it takes off the prime, which is all of the grease that has been built up on the waffle iron. Think of a cast iron frying pan. It's the same concept. So if I wash it, then I have to start priming my Pizzelle iron all over again. So that's about the end of this line here. All my little fun factoids and tips.